And good morning and welcome back again to one of our Meet the Speakers interviews for the CAV Forum 2024 to be held in Geneva 22 to 24 October. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome back again, second time round by popular demand, it would seem, a dear friend and old colleague over many years, Ian Marriott from Cre8. So Ian, welcome aboard.
No, thank you very much, and it's great to be back at CAV for this year. Yeah,
excellent. All right, so why don't we start? And for those that don't know you, give us a bit of a brief rundown about yourself and what Cre8 Associates do.
Well, if we go back quite some time, I'm a boy entrant to the UK Royal Air Force when I was 16, and I did an apprenticeship with them. So my time in the Air Force left me eventually as an avionics instructor on jet fighters. So I left having taught ground crew, radar, radio, countermeasures, everything you could think of about the avionics on board jet fighters. I then went to a company called MIRA, which was then the Motor Industry Research Association, when EMC, electromagnetic compatibility, was becoming a bit of a problem area that people thought on cars. And for the next 15 years as manager of EMC and electrical engineering, we tested vehicles, systems, components, wrote test methods, test reports, prototype vehicles, etc., all in the field of RF and RF effects on electronics in cars, not just cars, trucks, buses, government vehicles, etc. And then 20 years ago, it's our 20th anniversary this year for Cre8.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. We set Cre8 up, and I swore I'd never get into EMC again, and very, very quickly got into EMC. So Cre8 now has evolved for many, many things, and we have three main areas. And as the owner and managing director of the company, we look after everything from EMC itself, which is how cars and systems are affected by radio waves. We help people, we train people, we teach people EMC, we teach people how to design vehicles for EMC and to stop them being interfered with by radio waves and interfering other people. We build electronic filters and things like that to protect equipment from EMC or to reduce their EMC emissions. But also we have two different areas as well. One is in-field service, which you'll know well, where we go out and we help people in theatre to solve problems or to install systems to counteract the problems that they find. And we moved into bespoke electronic systems to help the CAV world, really, in turning a civilian vehicle into something that can be used for a different role, and some of those roles require specific electronics to be added. So basically that is where Cre8 lies at the present moment in time.
All right, very good. And again, you and I have had a long history going back, crikey's, 15 plus years in dealing with these issues in the field during my days with foreign affairs for the Australian government. And so I certainly appreciate the complexities that occur and are inherent when trying to take a civilian armoured vehicle and applying complex and sometimes not quite so complex pieces of electronic equipment, communications equipment into these vehicles. And so your presentation this year is really going to focus on communications equipment and their integration into civilian armoured vehicles. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the scope of what you're going to be talking about during your presentation.
Well, precisely that. I mean, communication systems are often, if not 99% of the time, having to be added to civilian armoured vehicles. And commercial vehicles themselves have a radio on board, a receiver, but it's in specific bands, and most of the testing is done in those specific bands to make sure that you and I can listen to the radio when we're driving a car. Once we move into more specific roles, these radios cover different bands. Some of them are more sensitive. and they often draw more power as well. So all of this goes into how we install communication systems into a vehicle, which is basically being re-rolled for a more complex role than just a basic civilian vehicle. So yeah, we're going to talk about communication systems. We're going to very, very briefly talk about intercoms, very, very briefly. And then we're moving into radios and in-vehicle monitoring systems, which require some form of communication system back. And then we're going to concentrate on the radios themselves, the different types, what their pros and cons are, when they're best used, the issues with them, and how we basically going to install them into the vehicles, the problems that we see with those installations, and the preparation work that's required for the radio installation into the armoured vehicle itself. So we're going to talk about space, power, antenna location. We're going to talk about the operation. And then we're going to really look at the problems that a civilian car generates with our more complex communication systems. So the final bit of it is maybe slightly different. We're bringing a load of equipment with us, and we're going to do some practical demonstrations. So we're actually going to bring some specialist equipment from the EMC chambers, and we're going to bring some things that we use in our EMC training courses to show how easy it is to interfere with a radio. We're going to show that interference in the conference area. We're going to show it, then we're going to show how simple some things are to redesign for pennies to make them more adaptable. And then we're going to show how filtering and various other aspects that we have to look at can make sure that the radios continue to operate, from the wipers being moved and the wipers interfering with them, to all sorts of various things. So the last half of the presentation is, I hope people will stand up and we can get them all crowded around a spectrum analyzer, and they can see this noise being generated by some very simple things that you would find on a civilian car.
Excellent. Look, that is tremendously exciting, and it's a case whereby a procurement agency and the technical team within that agency will then specify and develop a set of requirements for their vehicle. It'll go out to an up armourer to be built. They'll say, yes, it's put on a radio or a sat phone. And my experience has been this is always a tertiary consideration, not even a secondary. And so they'll install it, they'll get out in the field, and as an example, as you said, the windscreen wipers might be turned on all of a sudden. We've got an interference that is occurring, and it becomes a complex issue trying to resolve this in the field, when it may well be a systemic issue that could have easily been handled at the very beginning of time. So I think that's going to be a tremendous benefit to the people who will be attending. And really, then, just to wrap this up, given where vehicles are going, there's certainly the new 300 series of the Toyota, which is common platform, and also the gaining popularity of electric vehicles. Whilst not yet in the CAV market itself, there's lots of talk going around that. So maybe if you can give us an idea of what do you see as a couple of the big challenges going forward for communication systems in civilian armoured vehicles in the next few years?
I think the current challenge we have is going to continue, and that challenge is to basically design for, because, like you just said, most of the time it goes out, and the simple things that we can do in the design process, of layout of cabling and where cabling should go, and how it's connected, and earthing policies which affect radios, and that sort of processes can be easily implemented in the design process with everybody, but we don't think about it. And once you've then produced the car, put the radio in, and get somewhere else, you are up against it in trying to change the design of the vehicle. So we're back to all the normal things that we talk about with civilian armoured vehicles. It's getting that process right at the beginning so that people understand why they're doing it. And some of these processes mean nothing really in terms of money. It's about understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it, and not losing focus of that.
Mm.
Electric vehicles, well, I think with electric vehicles, the jury is still out in terms of many things. I do know that as we move forward, even with normal vehicles, the complexity of the vehicles, including the LC300, to which we've seen specific problems on, is going to get worse, and the electronic signature is going to get higher, and we're going to have to control it more. And I think that will then move into electric vehicles as well. Not many people are using electric vehicles yet in these roles, so we are keeping a watching brief, shall we say, on what's going on. We are getting involved in electric vehicles, so we do see the amount of noise that's come off. But they're going to be a very specific case if we have to do something with them for, tactical mobility.
Excellent. All right. Look, thank you so much for that. It's I have to say, there's a lot of people in the industry and the market have spoken to me that this is an area that they know they need to think about more. They know that they don't know a lot about. And so I think listening and the practical aspect of your presentation will be very well received and welcomed by all. So thank you very much for your time. We look forward to seeing you and all the attendees at CAV Forum 2024 in October in Geneva. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks so much.